If you're a real estate agent and your goal is to generate a ton of new conversations with new prospects, this is the episode for you. The key to generating a ton of new conversations is actually in your news feed right now. Let me explain. Let's get started. What is up, guys? Welcome to episode 413 of the Massive Agent Podcast. I am your host, Dustin Brohm, here in Salt Lake City, Utah. We've got a good one for you today, short and sweet. Look, what if I told you that the easiest way to get more engagement on your posts, more DMs from potential clients, and more conversations with real buyers and sellers was actually in your newsfeed right now? You've been scrolling past it the last few days for sure. And look, most agents are not using this. Most agents don't know about this, so you're going to get a leg up. Today, I'm going to show you how the simplest content strategy that could explode your conversations, right? Generate a ton of new conversations with buyers and sellers. Doesn't cost you a dime. Okay? You can generate a ton of new conversations without spending a dime on ads. Let's get started and jump into it now. Hot topics are only hot for a minute. Now, right now in the news, in media, there's a ton of talk, not just in our industry, but amongst consumers like CNBC, Fox News, like they're all talking about the 50-year mortgage and the concept of portable mortgages. Now, I'm not really here to go into the nitty-gritty on each one because they're just concepts, but I'm going to give a brief overview. I don't want to assume anyone knows what we're talking about here, but it's been floated by Bill Pulte, who's the head of FHFA, the Federal Housing and, I don't know, FHFA is what he's the head of. He's Trump's housing guy, basically. And he has floated over the last couple of weeks the idea of a 50-year mortgage. In fact, Trump has even tweeted and posted about, or Truth Socialed or whatever the hell, he's posted about, initiate, or what's the word? Instigating? Creating, that's the word, creating a 50-year mortgage to help with housing affordability. Now, there's been a lot of pushback from people saying that's a horrible idea, this, that, or the other. Look, there's pros and cons to a 50-year mortgage. So here's my take on the 50-year mortgage, and then I'll get into the portable mortgages, and then I'm going to explain how to use these to generate a shitload of conversations, how to use the hot topics of the day and hot topics in general moving forward, and how to identify them to generate a ton of new leads and conversations. Not just leads, but actual conversations. Consumers saying, hey, what about this? What does this mean? Can I get some details? I'm trying to do this. How does that affect my scenario? Blah, 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 blah. That's the goal here. And so if that's your goal, you're in the right place. So the 50-year mortgage has been floated as a way to bring down the cost of house. It's been, bringing down the cost of housing, not like the cost of homes, but how much the monthly payments are. If you have a 50-year mortgage, your payments are going to be a little bit less, $200-300 a month less. Some people will say that's not worth it because over 50 years, you're paying like $500,000 more in interest. Well, look, who the hell holds a mortgage 30 years, let alone 50 years? Right? I mean, unless you're an investor and you're looking to cash flow, like investors might keep a mortgage for a longer period of time, but the average person holds a mortgage for what, 8 years? I believe it's 8 years is the average now. So nobody's going to be holding on to a 50-year mortgage. You get into it to get into a house with a lower monthly payment. And I think it's going to help investors because, saving a few $100s a month could make a property cash flow that wouldn't otherwise. So it's going to allow a lot of people to have investment property. But there's pros and cons to it. And by the way, I think I said this before, but I want to make very clear. The 50-year mortgage is not a thing yet. It does not exist. It's just an idea that's being talked about. And so are the portable mortgages. So I got to wrap up this recap here so we can get into the meat and potatoes of how to use these topics to generate a bunch of leads and conversations. But the 50-year mortgage, there's pros and cons to it. Okay. Agents, like we did this in my real, why am I struggling today? Every Tuesday I do a mastermind open to all agents called the Real Producers Mastermind. And the topic was 50-year mortgages. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Good idea, bad idea. Our industry is super like polarizing about it. Like it's good, it's bad. There's good parts, there's bad parts. And there's pros and cons to using something like a 50-year mortgage, but there's pros and cons to a 30-year mortgage. There's pros and cons to a 15-year. There's pros and cons to everything. It's another tool in the tool belt, so I like it. I think that's a good thing. Let's move on to the portable mortgages. This one's actually exciting. I have no idea if they can pull this off. They'd have to be very creative, and it might even require rewriting rules. Well, it would definitely require rewriting rules, maybe some government subsidies involved somewhere along the line. But portable mortgages would let somebody who is in a property right now, they have a 3% interest rate, and they don't want to leave, they don't want to sell it and move to a different place because they know that the new loan will have a 6.5% interest rate. Well, unless you have to move or unless you really want to, you're not going to do that. And by the way, fun fact, a few years ago, and don't buy into this thing like if somebody has a 3% rate, they're never going to sell. Bullshit. I gave up a 3% interest rate for an 8.5% interest rate. I did a bank statement loan. Yes, the interest rate was much higher than if I would have done a regular loan. There's lots of reasons for this. I may have talked about it in the past, but my family needed more space. We wanted a better neighborhood. We wanted a better environment. We just wanted a nicer place. So yeah, I just had to pay a ton more every month for it. Our mortgage payment 4x'd, maybe 5x'd. I think our mortgage payment like 5x'd. So there's people like that out there. Not many, but don't buy into this thing that if somebody has a 3% rate, they're never going to sell it. Well, what if they want to? What if they want to live in a nicer neighborhood? What if they want or need a bigger house? Anyways, it would let people with a low interest rate keep it and transfer it over to the new property. Imagine how much inventory that would unlock and how much movement we'd see in the market if that was the case. So hopefully they can figure that out. It's just an idea that was floated. But here's the thing. These are concepts. There are no details. And so just by talking about them on social media, just bringing up, here's what's been proposed, here's what we think it's going to look like, and just talking about concepts, you're going to have a ton of people who see that content, agents and mostly consumers who are like, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? They have a ton of questions. So use the hot topics of the day, talk about the concepts, knowing that there's going to be a ton of questions as a result of you doing that content. That's the goal. Your goal should not be to answer all questions and to give all details in your content. I mean, maybe if you do a YouTube video, like that would be a better YouTube video where for 15 minutes or so, you could just dive deep on every detail. On social media, that's not what you want. You want it's the trailer. It's not the motion picture. It's the trailer. You want to get people interested. You want to tease them so that they want more. And to get more in this context means they're going to send you a message. They're going to comment, hey, well, what about this? Hey, well, what about this? What about this? Just focusing on the hot topics of the day while they're hot, while they're being talked about, while they're being discussed. And there's very few details even available because they're just concepts right now, is the perfect time for you to do a shitload of content around 50-year mortgages, portable mortgages, what it means, what it would allow, what you think it's going to do. You don't even have to say whether you like it or not. You could just say, here's some pros, here's some cons, but you just want to talk concepts with the intention that anyone who has a follow-up question will then they'll have to reach out. You want to hold back all the details and just tease and talk concepts, give them a little bit of meat so that they want all of it. Give them a taste, like be Costco, give them a little sample so then they want to buy the whole damn box. That's what you need to be doing on your content. So look for these hot topics. There's lots of them that happen. Like what was it, a year or so ago when NAR had all these lawsuits and there was all these rule changes. Well, the news comes out saying that, the 6% commission is dead and blah, blah, blah. CNN, by the way, absolute garbage. I still remember this headline. The days of the 6% commission is gone. Weird that commissions have actually gone up since then on average. I don't know if you knew that, but real estate agent commissions have actually increased since the NAR rule changes last year. Interesting. Was that last year? Yeah, that was mid 24. Yeah. Anyways, during that time, there were a bunch of consumers getting bullshit from the news sources, from the media, who were just writing clickbaity headlines. So there was a ton of people that are like, wait, what? Like, can I even still have an agent? Do I have to pay them out of my pocket up front before they even talk to me? There was all these misconceptions. And so agents who did content clarifying and giving a little bit of insight and being the adult in the room, got a ton of incoming messages from consumers that wouldn't have otherwise messaged. So that's the thing. Look for these hot topics where there's areas of confusion, where there's misinformation out there. So you can come in, talk about it, give a little bit more clarity, but still leave the door open so that they're like, wait, what about this detail? What about that one? And then they message you or comment. That's it. Look for the hot topics of the day, hit them hard. It doesn't mean just do one video. Some of you are going to be like, all right, I did my one video on 50-year mortgages. I did my one video on portable mortgages, or some of you will just combine them into one. What if you did 20 videos on each? Like, who says you only have to do one? Just keep going, hitting it over and over and over. Talk about different things in different ways, highlight different scenarios. If you do that, I mean, imagine if you just went hard on the 50-year mortgage, even though it's still just a concept, but you became known as the 50-year mortgage person. You became known as the 50-year mortgage expert. So then let's say a year from now, if it becomes a thing, who do they think of? Who do they remember? There's no rule that says you can only post one video on a topic. Just do it in a bunch of different ways and all that. So find the hot topics of the day, tease people with concepts. Don't go too heavy into details. I mean, give some. You don't want to give nothing so where they're like, thanks for nothing. You wasted 3 minutes of my time or 30 seconds of my time. Don't do that. So give something, but leave the door open to where they're like, they're wanting more. And then they message you. And here's a little rule for social media. If you want the viewer or if you want someone to do a certain thing, you have to tell them to do it. Whatever you want someone to do, tell them to do it, but only tell them one thing. You can't give them 4 different instructions. You can't say DM me and then send this to a friend and then tag your friend and then, text me. Too much. One call to action. So you can very easily at the end, because remember, they're going to be watching it and be like, okay, what about this? What about that? If you have questions, just shoot me a DM. Or if you have questions, just reply the word 50, and I'll send you this cheat sheet that I made on the 50-year mortgage. And you can have ChatGPT put that together into a Google Doc or something and just, but you need to be, that's what positions you as the guide and the advisor, is moving them along the path. We could call it a funnel, top of funnel, middle, bottom of the funnel, all that. The content that you're going to do, just, hey, 50-year mortgages, it's been floated. Here's what it means, blah, blah, blah. Here's what it could do. Here's the bad. Here's the good. That's the top of funnel. Anyone that is like, okay, that's interesting. Then you want to move them to the middle of the funnel with reply a certain word, and then they get a certain deliverable. You give them a guide. You give them some more details that you put into a Google Doc or a PDF you created on Canva or something like that. And then from there, if they're like, hey, if you want to talk about your specific scenario, here's some resources. Boom, boom. I mean, get them onto your HomeBot. Like, hopefully you're using HomeBot, by the way. You're going to hear a lot more from me about HomeBot over the next while because I am a big fan. But that's a great way to nurture somebody is, hey, well, while you're waiting for this, I can just hook you up with this free home value report that it's like the Zestimate, only accurate, and it tracks it every month and sends you an update, and you don't even need to hear from me, and get them into your HomeBot so that HomeBot can nurture them for you. There's a bunch of different things you could do to move them from middle to the bottom of the funnel. But it all starts with teasing the information, getting the conversation started. That should be the goal. So many agents, possibly you, every time you go to do a post, in the back of your mind, you're like, I hope this gets me a listing. I hope this gets me a listing. Look, of course you do. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't hope that, but if it's in the forefront of your mind, it's just short-sighted. Your goal should be, I want to get someone to ask me about this. I want to start a conversation. Sharon Srivatsa, one of the most brilliant men in real estate, says that all conversion happens in conversation. So nobody's going to convert to being a client before they ever talk to you. I mean, unless you are really, really good with content and you've been content marketing for a while, then it happens. We'll have somebody reach out and be like, hey, you're our guy. But you had been nurturing them all along with your content. If there's no content, if that content doesn't exist and it's your first video on a topic or whatever, you can't expect the people like, oh, okay, I'm going to hire you. Date a little bit first, give them some information, tease them. But the whole goal is to get them to respond, to reach out, to ask a question, to comment, to initiate a conversation, and then just be helpful. Then be helpful. And remember what the next step is for them. If they're asking certain questions, think, okay, well, sounds like you're trying to do a specific thing that may actually be possible now. You may not even need to wait for the 50-year mortgage in order to do that. Let me connect you with my preferred lender here. I've been using this lender for 10 years. I refer them to my friends and family. I use them personally for a mortgage, blah, blah, blah. And by hooking them up with your lender, that's actually a big value add to them to help them move down the path. But you got to start the conversation. You got to get the hand raised first with hot topics of the day. So pay attention to those. Every one of you should start hammering the 50-year mortgage and the portable mortgage concepts repeatedly. Just beat it till it's dead. And it might not be dead for a year or two. Just keep going and going and going. As soon as you hear this episode, get the hand raisers. I think you'll notice a ton of new conversations happening. Enjoy. Have fun with that. It took, what is this episode? 15 minutes? Took 15 minutes of your time, and now you're going to get a shitload of new conversations started just by taking action on a simple concept. Thank you for listening to the Massive Agent Podcast. I hope it was valuable today. If it was valuable, please share this with another agent. Share it with a friend. Share it with your broker, team leader. Share it within a real estate Facebook group of other agents. Help me to reach new agents, and I'll keep coming back every week with another episode of the Massive Agent Podcast. I'll see you guys next week. Take care.